person has to really pay attention to the comedy. But, some can run with it, some cannot run with it. Yeah. When you hear the people that support and don't support you, how do you process that?
So first things first, I want to make it very, very clear that Logan Paul is absolutely not really a tool of the Matrix. He's a bought and sold individual with no soul. He doesn't stand up for anything, and he doesn't mean anything he says. He gets pieces of paper from Susan or whoever else telling him what he's allowed to say on his channel to retain it.
You believe that?
100%. Not only do I believe it, he's proved to himself. He will flip-flop on any issue. He can be bought and sold. The dude's a bitch. Logan Paul is a bitch, and I will say that here publicly. If anyone wants, I'll fight him for free. The guy's an idiot.
No money needed to fight Logan Paul.
Logan Paul doesn't believe in any of the things he says. Logan Paul is a man. If you ever were unfortunate enough to consume his content, I get sent clips of it all the time by people mocking him. As soon as something comes out, whether it's Harry Styles wearing a dress, whether it's Lil Nas twerking on the devil, whether it's this, he just sits there and goes, yeah, this is great. Yeah, this is great. He is a talking piece. He is the mouthpiece for the agenda. The people have come along, people who are trying to force a narrative, and they said, look, we need to have some degree of control over the exact demographic that Tate has control over. We're going to use Logan Paul and attempt to use him. And he sits there and just purports the bullshit points of view that the whole Hollywood establishment want him to purport. He doesn't believe in the things he said. He's told what to say. And because he was canceled before and it emotionally destroyed him, he sat on camera crying his eyes out like a little girl instead of being a man about it. He is so fearful of the mob and so scared of being canceled again that he's going to sit there and say anything he's told. He doesn't believe that shit. Before I was canceled, him and his boyfriend Mike did endless videos supporting me, laughing about me, saying how funny I was, tagging me on Instagram, inviting me places, etc. The second I'm canceled, they flip reverse it and shit themselves because they don't want to get canceled too. They are children. That's all they are. So Logan Paul's a bitch. That's the first thing about Logan Paul. And what's actually been interesting about this whole cancellation thing is it hasn't negatively affected me in any serious way because I've been saying on podcasts for years, I know a cancellation is coming. I knew it was coming. I knew that as I got more popular and more powerful to a degree that it was going to come. But what it has done is it has awoken the world, to anyone who's perspicacious enough to pay attention, to learn which individuals out here in the social media space actually have character and believe what they say, and which are completely bought and sold and are tools to the Matrix. The people who have decided to stand up for me and say, no, this is bullshit, are people who have, to some degree, credibility. This is people who say what they truly believe. But the people who were totally a fan and then post-cancellation shit themselves in 180 and get a new piece of paper to talk from, that should tell out the public out there exactly who's controlled and whether these people have a genuine narrative that they're trying to report on the world. And it's interesting. Logan's one of them, and there's a few others. But I'm glad it happened just for that alone, because it's actually very clear. If you go to Logan Paul's last podcast where he's discussing me, all of his fans, and we'll talk about fans and viewers in a minute because I think they're very different things. All of his fans, which he has none of, all of his viewers are sitting there insulting him, saying, bro, you're a fucking bitch. Like everyone, all of his own watchers are calling him names because it's so transparent and so obvious what he's doing.
Fans versus viewers.
Fans versus viewers, very different things. So he doesn't have any fans. He has viewers. And Susan and the Matrix and the people in charge of social media companies are like, okay, we've set our media machine. Let me ask you guys questions as professionals. Let's assume what I'm saying is correct. Let's assume that the social media companies, when they banned me, set their media machine to all release thousands of news articles at the same time, trying to convince the world I'm an evil man. If they had that degree of power and influence, which I think we can all probably agree they do, don't you think they'd take their number one talking piece to the demographic, which is my fan, and give him a piece of paper and tell him what to say? Does that not make sense? Does that make sense to say, well, we told all the news to say Tate's bad, and all of his fans are 18 to 25-year-old men. Who do we have on YouTube who obeys us like a little cuck who speaks to 18 to 25-year-old men? Logan Paul. Okay, Logan, here's your piece of paper. Do you want to get canceled again, Logan? No, you don't want to get canceled, do you? No, Mom.
You're saying a call like that was made?
100%. The dude's a bitch. He 180'd from a super fan to talking about my rhetoric being dangerous in 24 hours.
There's a difference between you saying who you think he is versus you making the speculation that he got called by somebody to say, here's a narrative we want you to take, or else we'll silence you.
Well, Logan is not capable of independent thought. So if someone didn't give him the narrative, he didn't think it up himself. The dude's an empty vessel. He says what he is told to say. Somebody, somewhere, told Logan what to say and what stance to take. We can argue whether it was a social media company, whether it was his manager who was fearful, whether whatever. But somebody sat with Logan and said, look, Tate's getting a lot of smoke. You were cool with him. Your boyfriend Mike was cool with him. He's getting a lot of smoke right now. You're going to bitch out. And he sat there and said, yes, sir. Yes, I will. Because he has no character or no integrity. If it was all the other way around, let's imagine he was getting canceled. And I truly believed it was unfair. I'd sit there on my own platform and say, this is bullshit, because I'm not bought, sold, and owned. He's an owned individual. So he's always going to say what he is told to say. He's always going to sit on podcasts, speaking to the youth, promoting Harry Styles wearing a dress, saying that it's great that Little Nas twerks on the devil in real time for our children to digest, and then say, I'm dangerous to the youth, because that's what he's been told to say. Logan Paul has absolutely no capability for independent thought. He has no character as a man. That's who Logan Paul is.
Now, you said he got canceled in the past. I don't think he ever got canceled. I think his channel was demonetized for 90 days, but they kept all his stuff up. He was never taken fully down like you were fully taken down. They just kind of demonetized.
This is for the Japanese.
This is when he did
forest.
the Japanese video where apparently he went to a place where
you commit suicide in Japan. Right.
Yeah, I'm not completely familiar with the absolute mechanics of its cancellation. All I do know is that he cried on television repeatedly. So the dude was obviously emotionally affected by it and is fearful of it. And when someone is scared of something, that's the tool you use to manipulate them.
Well,
he is scared of being canceled.
Because when this happened to you, you're 35 years old, right? You're a grown man. I know you like to joke. I'm an old man. I mean, you're in literally your prime, bro.
Correct.
When that happened to him, he was 23 years old.
Correct.
Right? This was 5 years ago. I think he's 27 now, 22, whatever. You've had a lot more life experiences and been in fights, literally, proverbially, all that, versus someone who's 23. I could see where you're coming from, being like he's been groomed by this virtual governments, these digital media companies.
He needs them.
He needs them. He's become a mouthpiece of them, is
He's
what
a
you're saying.
mouthpiece of them. He needs them. And you're right. He was younger at the time. I would like to think that Patrick has been through a much harder situation in his life at younger than 23 than cancellation and wasn't crying his eyes out like a little girl. So the dude's obviously emotionally soft. He needs them. And the reason he needs them is because Logan Paul doesn't have fans, he has viewers. And that's what's actually been highlighted to me significantly since my banning, that there's a massive difference between those two things. Logan Paul is a person who needs the platforms and needs the algorithms, and people will watch him, but they will sit there and most of them will call him names, but he will have views. That is different than having fans. When you have fans, look at me, for example, when I got canceled, they say, where's Tate? Where is he? I'll go anywhere he is. I'll download any app. I'll uninstall the other apps. I'll take his content and post it on the platforms they don't want him on. Where is Tate? That's a fan. And that's different. When you only have viewers, you need the algo. Yeah. I don't need the algo. As long as people know where I am, they're going to come. And it's a completely different scenario.
Whose playbook you think he's following? If you were to say, because isn't that the Hollywood playbook? Like you follow that playbook, and as long as because that's what you're speculating. He's following the playbook of, you follow our narrative, we're going to give you the world.
I think that since the dawn of human time, anybody who had power understood that it was a particular demographic which is going to become dangerous to their power mechanism in the future. It's not a new idea. The idea that the Romans would conquer a Greek city and kill all the boys and all the military age males, it's always been the same, right? Who's going to cause us trouble if we want to hold this city? These guys. We'll get rid of them. So nowadays, I think what they're trying to do is neuter this class. They're trying to neuter this class by affecting them mentally and affecting their mindset and affecting their ability to think critically. And if you neuter this class, you're far less likely to have a revolution when you do something crazy. Like, I don't know, like, for example, imagine for 2.5 years, you wanted to lock everyone in their houses because of the common cold. Let's imagine you were going to do something tyrannical. You would want to ensure that this class of individuals were so busy concerned with either being depressed or jerking off or being physically weak or distracted. So they didn't all stand up and go, wait, this common cold can't hurt me. And I just started my business and I ain't going bankrupt for this shit. They don't want that. So they're trying to neuter a certain class of people. I don't really want to talk too much in depth about who I think they are because I'm trying to stay alive and I would never kill myself. But it's certainly happening. And I think anybody with a brain can see the narrative is out there. And the narrative is being purported and accelerated by all mainstream media channels. And people who are allowed to have a platform, such as Logan Paul, have sold their soul, cut their dicks off, and they sat there and say, yes, I will say what you tell me to say. Please don't cancel me. I am a fearful individual. The dude is a punk. And if he ever meets me in the cage, I will destroy him in real time for free. And he knows that.
What about the brother?
Well, Jake, at least, well, this is the interesting thing about those two, right? Because me and my brother have become the most famous brothers on the planet. So there's also a degree of jealousy involved.
I was just going to ask that. You get the Tate bros and the Paul brothers, and it's like this balance of power that's being shifted and this
completely
sort of this dance that's happening.
It's interesting, right? Because you had the Disney brothers. The Disney brothers who gained a bunch of power and notoriety, and they were the most famous brothers on the planet. And they've now been usurped by my brother and I, who come from a very unfortunate background and grew up on the street and did everything ourselves. And obviously, the youth of the world today have an affinity and feel a synergy with us that they don't feel with the Disney brothers, because the Disney brothers had a very easy, privileged life. You know, they grew up relatively easily and privileged. If you get a Disney contract, then you become a YouTuber. You never really know struggle. I mean, you've had it pretty good. So there's a degree of jealousy involved. Jake at least stood up for free speech. Jake has said some negative comments about me. I've said a few negative things about him. But I have nothing personal against Jake. And also, I find it interesting that Jake and Logan are not even that close. They may pretend to be. Obviously, they're brothers. But Jake and KSI have beef. They're literally trying to hurt each other. Logan is KSI's best friend. When you ask Logan who would he choose between KSI and his brother in a boxing match, he's like, oh, I don't know, man. He can't even choose his own flesh and blood over some fucking dude he met. Their whole relationship is weird. If you insult my brother or you have any kind of problem with my brother, you have a problem with me. That's on site permanent. Like me and my brother are like this, but they're not like that. They have this weird relationship and they've slept with each other's girlfriends and a bunch of weird shit. So I don't know what's going on with them guys.
Yeah, KSI did say, thank God Andrew Tate got banned. Go ahead. You were saying something?
I mean, we're talking about the Tate brothers.
Right.
And the Paul brothers, arguably the two most famous set of brothers in the world.
Right.
But you've got two sons, right?
Yeah. Well, listen,
similar age difference between these guys.
For me, here's what I like.
Yeah.
I'm a pro competition guy.
Yeah.
Right.
The fact that he went on Rumble and he got 500,000 subs in 2 weeks, you know who wins? You know who wins?
The market.
The world wins.
Yeah.
The fact that he went on Rumble, got 500,000 subs. Good job for Chris for making that move, by the way.
We know
And we've had good conversations at the house with him. And he's making a move right now on our buddy, the guy we like, Russell Brand and a few other guys.
Amazing.
But the stud, he's doing
CEO
the right
of Rumble.
thing. Yeah, he's
Amazing
doing the right
guy.
thing. Yeah,
Amazing
no
guy.
question about it.
Amazing.
But
guy.
go back to this. I want both to be competing.
Completely.
I got two boys. I want the Tates going against Pauls to go against this.
Completely.
I run an insurance company. We have a lot of siblings that compete against each other. It's great for the market. But where I was going, I said, who is Logan Paul's playbook he's following, right? He's 27. The video you talked about, 23, when it was in December in 2017, I want to say, when he was in Japan. The video with him and his girl when, you know, the what do you call it? The belt. That when you got kicked off of Big Brother or whatever it was in 2016. But that video is from 2012. 10 years ago, he's 25. So 23, 25, you know, you coming from that kind of an environment, you can kind of hold the two things at the same level of accountability. One is suicide. The other one is, you know, a extreme method of sexual, you know,
Consensual
sex that, you know, it is what it is. But this is where I was going with it. Years ago, and I'm just trying to see, because, you know, the whole thing, what would Jesus do? Everybody has a WW something do, right?
Yeah.
So Logan, when he did the Japan thing, the story came out, he was talking about it openly, that the Rock's people said, hey man, you got to distance yourself from him. And apparently what he told is Rock's people contacted to say, hey, delete all the pictures that we have together, et cetera, et cetera. So maybe he's going into wrestling. He's following Rock's footsteps. Yeah. Rock is definitely somebody that if he ever wanted to run for office, that's a guy that could do it if he wanted it. I think Logan's another guy, whether you like him or not. I think he's got the pedigree to one day run. It doesn't mean you're going to support his policies, but he is a guy that's going in the direction of one day running. 20, 30 years, he could do it. So maybe he's sitting there saying, what would The Rock do? He distanced himself from me. Well, maybe I got to stop defending this guy and I got to distance myself from him. I wasn't going on the angle of, you know, Hillary Clinton, Calder, all these guys. No, I was going more, what playbook is he following?
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I would disagree. And the reason I would disagree is because that requires a degree of thought and intellect that Logan Paul does not possess.
You think he's an idiot?
No, I know he's an idiot. He's not thinking that far ahead. He's literally, someone has told him, say this, and he says it. It doesn't, and it's not just me. There's been loads of examples, and I put it on my podcast on Rumble, where we went through all the times where something came up, some controversial subject that people were discussing, is this good for the public consciousness? And the answer was always basically no. Is this necessary for children to be consuming? The answer was always basically no. But it was purported by the Hollywood elites, and Logan was always the number one person sticking up for it. He is bought and sold by somebody, whether his management team, whoever they are, they think it's good for him to act this particular way. He does not think for himself. He says what he is told to say.
But isn't that Hollywood in general?
Completely.
Right?
The Matrix.
Exactly.
The Matrix. So we agree. The Matrix. The agents of the Matrix. Some minds are not ready to be freed. And those who are not ready to be freed are going to sit there and they're going to defend the system. What does Morpheus say himself? He's sitting there defending the system. Logan Paul is going to sit and pretend that the world is going to be a better place if you remove all opposing ideas. And he's going to sit there and say that because he's a moron. Anyone with a brain understands if you care about your children and your children's children, they need to live in a world full of healthy competition, exactly as you said. As soon as you remove all opposing viewpoints or all competition, you end in tyranny. And anyone with a brain will sit and say, if he had any kind of character, he'd say, I completely do not agree with what Tate says. However, deplatforming is wrong because of X. He doesn't have to talk about me or what I've said. He can sit there and say, no, deplatforming is wrong because we need to have opposing viewpoints, opposing ideals. Idea A, idea B, the truth is perhaps in the middle. He has no intellect.
You
He's
can
no
disagree
intelligence.
with somebody.
He can't do that. He's not smart enough.
Yeah.
Tate's bad today. Okay, tell me when he's good again. He's a bought and sold individual. When my hero arc completes, because we're at a transition stage, when my hero arc completes, and much like Batman, people understand that we thought he was the bad guy, but we realized we needed him. And when I come back to save Gotham and the hero arc completes, you'll see him and his little boyfriend back on Instagram saying, Tate's funny, and swap again because it's allowed. That's all he is. He's
That's your prediction for him.
Not prediction, is absolute matter of fact. Especially, it also couples in with the fact that he's extremely jealous of my brother and I's success because my brother and I's success is not based on the same successes that he enjoyed. His success is based on being a clown. That's why he has viewers. He puts on a Pokemon suit and he jumps around like a clown. He doesn't sit there and give ideas or say things that make people think to the point where they genuinely resonate with your mindset. He's not intelligent enough for that. He's a performing clown as opposed to a philosopher. So they're different opposite things, and he knows that, and it upsets him. He can't sit in front of a camera by himself and say words that are going to inspire the crowds of any city in the world to shout your name. If I were to walk through Madrid right now, there would be young people shouting my name, Top G, Top G. That's because of what I say. Mm-hmm. He puts on a Pokemon suit and does a dance. He's an entertainer. He's not a thinker.
Did we not just have that conversation yesterday?
They're different things.
Right. And this is sort of to your credit. We were having this conversation because we knew we'd have this sort of dialogue. And he said, Pat was asking me, Adam, what do you think? I said, you got to understand something about my perspective on Tate is 95% of what I've seen about Tate is camera to the face, him talking and spitting game.
Right.
When you're talking about the Paul brothers, it's fighting, dancing, all sorts of whatever. Right. I've never seen you in the ring. Yeah. I've seen your accolades, highlights, but I've never seen that.
Yeah.
So people know your rhetoric. They know what you're saying, and whether they agree or disagree, you're known for what's coming out of your mouth versus they're known for antics.
And that's the difference between a fan and a viewer.
That's what goes back to your
initial point. He has viewers because he's a clown. Clowns can have viewers, that's fine. And you need an algorithm and you need a platform for that. But if you have genuine fans like I do, they ban me. People are like, to this day, where is Tate? And they will go anywhere I am. Anywhere I am, they will come because they don't believe they can find my rhetoric or my ideas somewhere else. If you ban Logan Paul, they can find another moron to jump around in front of a camera for you. They can promote someone else inside of their algo and steal his entire audience inside of a week. He can disappear and they can replace him. He knows that. That's why he says what he's supposed to say. If I stop being the performing clown, the new performing clown comes, the algo favors him, they put him up there, and he does a stupid dance, and he gets all my viewers. I'm a completely different kettle of fish. Different story.
That was a great perspective of entertainer versus thinker, right? I mean, when you talk about, let's just say there's a dialogue about Joe Rogan, what are you talking about? So the other day, Joe had this guest on, and this person, and Joe said this, you're having a dialogue with another person. But if you talk about, the other day, man, Logan did this one video, it's hilarious. So that's where he's going is one is creating dialogue, the other one is creating entertainment. I can see that. And by the way, one thing, the day you got banned, we wrote up a story and we posted it on Twitter. And I said, so this guy's a threat to society, the way they're presenting it, right? Tate is a threat to society.
Question mark.
And I'm gonna read all the things that you said because I want the audience to hear it. Some of it is uncomfortable probably for you to hear.
Absolutely.
But I'm gonna read it because I want the audience that maybe hasn't heard all of it see it. But to me, when you say threat to society as a father of four, when I watch Little Nas X making out with the devil on a performance and you're saying that's creative, then you really do want to hurt the family nucleus if you're okay with that.
Yeah, correct.
If a Cardi B gets up there and says, who cares about your body count, go make your money if you got to make your money. And other girls are
doesn't matter if you're a stripper, if you're a sex worker, it's all good. Go get your bag, girl.
Or O.J. Simpson, who did what he did, and he's on Twitter giving fantasy football, or Khamenei or Putin or all these guys who are out there giving their commentary. Right. You're worried about this guy because he's a womanizer, because he's got now. a complete different conversation to have. But I want to read this. I want to read this. And if you allow me to just go through some of them, let me just say them. It's only a few of them, and then we'll wrap up and go to you.
No problem.
So how are women allowed to drive? Okay, fine. I asked the question the other day. We were having this debate. I think we were in Cabo. I said, who's a better driver, men or women? And so, well, women get into fewer accidents, but the data doesn't tell the truth. Who drives more miles in their lifetime? And then we eventually, after 2 hours of debate, you see where you're going with that. I like Eastern Europe as a whole because corruption is far more accessible. Okay, I can see why that's going to cause a red flag. Right. You can't be responsible for something that doesn't listen to you. You can't be responsible for a dog if it doesn't obey you, a child or a woman. Okay, that's going to piss off women. Men who constantly give into mental health problems can't compete with other men who don't. I'm depressed. I can't go to the gym. You said that's why you got to go to the gym so you're not depressed.
Correct.
Read the Bible. Every single man had multiple wives. Not a single woman had multiple husbands. It's against the will of God. It's disgusting. Okay. Sexual harassment is a disgusting and inexcusable. However, man looking at you or whistling at you or asking your name isn't harassment. Women have been exchanging sex for opportunity for a long time. Some did this, weren't abused. If you put yourself in a position to be raped, you must bear some responsibility. That's going to piss a lot of people off when you say that.
Completely. I understand. And I would actually, if we have time, I would like to explain all of these.
When I'm done, you can rebuttal on every one.
Because I mean every single one of them. If you want to reach me, I'm on Minict. Minict is a new app. It's fantastic. It allows me to interact directly with people. I get a lot of messages on email, a lot of DMs and those kind of things. But the people who are serious and want to have serious conversations and grow from them, whether it's a business opportunity or personal experience, etc., I'm on Minict, and I can't wait to interact with the serious individuals of the world. So I would like to.
Fantastic. Good. Why would you be with a woman who's not a virgin anyway? She's a used good secondhand. Right. I mean, that's 99.9%. Read the Bible. Every single man had multiple wives. Not a single woman had multiple husbands.
Yep.
It's against the will of God. It's disgusting. Okay. Yep. It's easier to get off on rape charges in Romania. Okay.
That was taken out completely out.
Of course it was. You went a little bit deeper, but again, you can give your position.
Yep.
Anyways, there's a bunch of other things that I can go on, that I can go through. So I read those comments. And here's what I'll say when I read those comments. I have 2 sons. I have 2 daughters. When I post stuff about you and they'll say, how dare you, who's a father married with 4 kids, would you want a girl, your daughter, to go through this? And I said, first of all, I get judged on how I raised my kids for 18 years.
Yep.
Your brother now has a daughter, so you got a niece. So your emotional attachment of your fear, paranoia for if somebody touches that girl, I know your wiring is you guys are going to be in a completely different place.
Absolutely.
And God's got a funny way of giving daughters to men that, you know what I'm saying? So,
it's true.
Or nieces.
It's true.
But when you hear these things and people say, well, dude, that's just not cool. You can't say that. We're about this. We're about that. We're about this. What do you say to the people who hear this stuff and they say, dude, this guy's out of his mind?
I will tell them. I will say that they are a product of the modern world where sensationalism gets clicks, where nobody has an attention span, and where they've taken long format content, completely removed all context, and they're now watching something they don't completely understand, along with groupthink, along with group psychosis, along with the idea that it's cool to hate Andrew Tate. They are now saying that I'm the worst man in the world. I can explain each and every one of these sentences, and with explanation, people will understand that I'm not some evil psycho. There's endless videos on TikTok of people going up to women on the street going, what do you think of Andrew Tate? And half of them actually say, we love Andrew Tate. I'd love to date a man like Andrew Tate. He's the kind of guy I like. The girls will say, I hate him. They say, why? He says, he talks bad about women. And then they say, what does he say bad? Every single one of them goes, I can't remember. They were told to believe it. Like they're told to wear the mask. They don't even know. They're NPCs. You know what's unfortunate about the world?
What's NPCs?
NPC is like a video game. You ever played a video game, a non-playable character? Where you're like running around in an RPG and there's some character there who just repeats the same line over and over again? They're NPCs. You know what's unfortunate about the way the world is? Maths and statistics insist there's no way this can be broken. That unfortunately, half of the population are more stupid than average. That's the truth. There are a bunch of dumb people out there who just literally repeat what they're told. Tate's dangerous for women. Tate's dangerous for women. Why? Don't know why.
Well, why do I need to go watch all the videos on Tate? I'll just take your word for it.
Yeah, I don't even fucking know. If you don't mind, I would like to go through each of these one by one. If you could remind me of the first one, I'll explain it.
So you have the CPR you already addressed.
Yep.
Drive. So corruption in Romania.
So let's do one by one. What's the first one?
Corruption. Go to corruption or driving.
Corruption. So let's talk about, I said corruption is far more accessible in Eastern Europe. The reason I said that is because firstly, I live in Romania, which is a beautiful country full of beautiful people. I was living there and people often say to me, why do you live in a corrupt country? And my argument was, every country's corrupt. If you think America is not corrupt, you are living in a bubble. The world is corrupt. England's corrupt. They're all corrupt. The EU is corrupt. Russia's corrupt. Every country's corrupt. I would rather live in a corrupt country, considering that they're all corrupt, with corruption that's more accessible to myself, than in a country where they're going to pretend there's law and order unless you reach a certain level, and then you can access the corruption. I'll give you a very simple example. If you are, let's say, the husband of a senator, for example, and you DUI, let's just make this up, hypothetical.
This would never happen.
This would never happen
course,
because
yeah, for sure.
you know, like
this kind of stuff doesn't
America,
happen.
the greatest country in the world. There's no way that
Husbands of senators don't drink.
They don't just DUI.
Yeah.
But let's imagine you did, right? In America, you get off with it scot-free. But if you're a single mother or you're a single parent and you're out there working a minimum wage job and you're trying your very, very hardest and you have kids to raise and you get a DUI, you're fucked. Now, I think it's kind of unfair that the corruption limit in a rich country, in this hypothetical super rich country, means that people at the absolute elite can do whatever they want and nobody else has access. I'll give you another example. Let's imagine you're in Serbia. Same scenario. You're a senator's husband and you get caught with a DUI. Of course, nothing's going to happen to you. But you're a normal person, you get caught with a DUI. Bro, I've had a hard day at work. I know I'm over the limit. I'm sorry. Here's $50. I'm sorry. I'm just going to drive straight home. All right, cool. Go home. Bam. Accessible corruption. To me, that's a more of an appealing environment to live under than under a society where they're going to take a normal person, wreck them under the law, throw their ass in jail and fucking destroy them and sit there and cry about law and order, law and order, law and order, when it's all bullshit anyway. There's no law and order. The threshold for corruption is too high. So for me as a person, you said I'm a chess player. If I'm a chess player and I analyze the chessboard, I have geographical freedom. I have financial freedom. I'm going to live in a society. Why don't I live in a society where I have the most possible moves to make on a chessboard? Where would I go? I'd go somewhere where my money can benefit me. I don't have billions. I'm not a senator's son, but I have enough to live in some other countries and be protected in some regards. That's just an intelligent chess move. I explained this at length in a video. All that context all removed, I was talking about speeding fines. They take the misogyny thing, they take something about rape, which is imaginary because I have no criminal charges against females, against anything in my life ever. They put it together, they take in the corruption from Romania, they throw that in, they whip it up, and they throw it out to the world. And it's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. What's the next one? I said women can't drive.
So let's stay on that one real quick.
Sure.
I mean, I can understand how that's going to piss off certain people when you're explaining corruption and law and order, because where does jealousy and envy come from? If you think about it, jealousy and envy comes from what? Sometimes
usually.
It comes from people that no matter what they do, they can never be Tate.
Yeah.
They can never, ever. Like we were talking to Grant Stephan and he says, what do you think about Tate? What do you think about everybody that's going to try to do his affiliate marketing? I said, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I said, he's not duplicatable.
Yeah.
So non-duplicatable people like you are annoying to people that are, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Correct.
They can't sit there and say, no matter how many motivational books they read,
right.
no matter how many videos of you they watch, they cannot talk like you and tell the story.
Yeah.
That produces envy and jealousy.
Right.
And you can see how someone like this can be taken out of context saying, he must be a criminal for wanting to go to a place that doesn't have law and order.
Absolutely. And I understand why they would say that. Now, what's actually interesting is Bucharest, the capital of Romania, where I live, is statistically 25 times safer than a city like London. It's not even a dangerous place. It's the most Christian country on earth, 99.3% Christian in the last census. There's churches everywhere. It's highly religious. It's a very nice place. It's just a different economic bracket. It's nothing to do about Romania specifically. If you go to any second world country in the world with a different economic bracket, the corruption is going to be more accessible. The price is lower. Humans are corrupt. Every single institution on the face of the planet that is run by humans, which is currently all of them at some degree, is corrupt. All of them. Whether it's doctors, financial, judicial, law and order, the monetary system, it's all completely and utterly corrupt. And to sit here and believe that any of them are just and fair, I think we've just learned in the last few years that we can see that even simple things like keeping people alive, even medicine, is completely corrupt from head to toe. All of it is. So you have to understand that, and then you have to look at the chessboard and go, okay, if it's all completely and utterly corrupt, and I understand that there are certain people who get to play the game on cheat mode. Do I want to be able to play the game on cheat mode if I'm going to try and be the best version of myself? Well, yes, I could possibly do that in Nigeria. I could play on cheat mode. I could possibly play on cheat mode in Croatia. I could possibly play on cheat mode here. Here, I have to stick to the rules. If I have to obey the rules of chess against a person who can move their pieces however they want, I'm going to be perpetually crushed for eternity. So it makes that's just smart business sense to me to sit there and go, you know what? Fuck it. Let's change the board. Let's move it out. Let's reset up the pieces and let's play this way. And this is nothing specific with the country I live. I have absolute respect for the country I live. This is just human nature. This is the nature of systems and how they work and the nature of the first world, second world, third world. This is just how the world works. So I say these things and people want to sit here and try and they mix it up. They take that and they try and mix it up with some girl shit and try and pretend I'm not talking about basic things like speeding fines. That's really what I'm talking about. And we can have a long, detailed argument about how corrupt America is, but I like to think that most people with the brain understand the kind of shit that's going down in America. So America's absolutely corrupt as well. It's just a corrupt world. That's
When's
humans.
the last time you lived in the States?
I left when I was a child.
So you haven't lived in the States in
Never.
decades.
Never.
Wow. But you go back quite frequently.
That might come to an end.
That might come to an end.
Maybe Miami.
Maybe Miami,
But you
yeah.
use an analogy to kind of set you up for this. Use an analogy with Pomp whenever you did that interview.
Yeah.
You said, listen, if you two basketball teams, you play a pickup game for $10,000, no referees, no judges, no nothing, just go for it, guys. Do you think there'd be any cheating going on? Fuck yeah.
Yep.
Of course.
Yep.
So now, what was the analogy or the metaphor that you made for government and systems?
So I said,
to that?
So I say, if you accept that in a basic pickup game of basketball for $10,000 without referees and judges, humans are going to naturally avert to cheating to make sure they win. Do you think the people who are in charge of the world for the power and control of the entire populace and all of its resources are not going to consider cheating to win? You think it's not going to cross their mind to just go, you know what, let's just change this little bit.
I was thinking.
You're going to sit there and believe, no, it's fair. Nothing is fair. Nothing has ever been fair. If you've lived a life of genuine hardship, the first thing you will learn is that nothing is ever fair. I've never seen a fair fight on the street. I've never seen a fair relationship. I've never seen a fucking person lose his girlfriend or lose their husband fairly. I've never seen a fair incident on the fucking road when someone gets crushed by a truck. The world is a very unfair place. And humans come along and we purport this idea, don't worry, if we're in charge, we'll make it fair. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. Nothing is ever, ever fair. And the human inclination is to win, as it should be. And the more powerful you are and the higher the stakes, the higher your inclination to win, as it should be. This is human nature. You wouldn't be able to put yourself in a position of power if you thought any other way. So if you're going to sit there and accept the basis that we're going to cheat in a basic basketball game, that people cheat in football games, that people cheat in poker, and people cheat in all this bullshit, and then say no, but they're not going to cheat to control the world, then you're asinine. Right. It's all a fucking lie. It's all a cheat. All of it.
There's a part of it that somebody, I don't think, I mean, tell me who actually believes the government, everything they do is right and there isn't corruption in government. What percentage of the populace in any country believes that? It's got to be a very small percentage of
both sides. I think most people, whether side of the political aisle you're on, you understand, you recognize that corruption exists.
You have selective hearing where you will typically only see the good on the side you support, and you will typically only see the bad on the side you don't support. But I don't know anybody who doesn't believe there is a level of corruption going on in the government.
Well, then you say that, but anyone who ever advocates for more government or more law, whether they believe there's corruption or otherwise, are acting adverse to the truth, right? If you believe an institution is corrupt, and then you say, I want them to have more power, well, then what? So you have to look at the people who are always advocating for more law. Those people who are advocating for more law or stricter controls, to a degree, are on the side of a corrupt institution. And it's actually very difficult because we need laws. Nobody wants to live in a failed state without law. Of course, humans need laws completely. But dying empires, this was said by somebody more intelligent than me, but I can't remember their name. Dying empires adopt laws like a sick man adopts medicine. And you'll see why some of these countries in the world, especially the first world countries, as things get harder and harder and harder, the government only has one answer to all problems: law. Energy crisis is out of control.
You do need law and order, though.
You need law and order. Of course you do.
Order.
Absolutely you do. But I'm saying that you get to a point where you end up, you wonder how you end up in a tyrannical society. Or you wonder how you end up in a society where it's so hard for the average person to survive against the law itself. Because when something bad happens inside of a first world nation, the first answer is just create more law. There's an energy crisis, make more law. There's too much crime, make more law. Inflation, make more law. More law, more law, more law. Print more laws, print more laws, print more laws. You end up with a book of law like this, and it can be thrown at anybody at any time. And this is what's actually interesting about some societies in the world. I live in a country, Romania, which is one of the poorest countries in Europe. It's a homogenous society, but it's very poor. The police drive Dacias that can't go more than 65 miles an hour. Underfunded police force. There's no crime. There's not this big, huge book of law. It's just don't kill anybody, don't be an idiot. And just live your life. It's pretty normal. And it's like that in many places in the world. But in other societies and other empires, they're like, no, we need a law for everything. A law about how you use your telephone, a law about how you listen to the radio, a law about how you do bank transfer, a law about this, a law about law. And to a degree, it ends up sooner on a long enough time frame. If you're going to make new laws every single day into eternity, where are you going to end up?
Is that just because Romania just trusts Judeo-Christian values and that's just sort of how they abide?
I'd like to think it's that innocent, but I think a lot of it is also down to enforcement. I don't think they have the mechanisms to enforce laws, so they don't pass them. Whereas in other nations, they have the mechanism to enforce the law, so they pass them. So, but my point is, if I lived in a nation where they're printing 5,000 new laws a week, I know that's going to end up in tyranny. Regardless, sooner or later, if you're going to make new laws every fucking day, sooner or later it's going to be impossible for me to go outside my house. Like, that's it. And you end up in a society where that actually literally came true in certain states in America. You couldn't leave your fucking house. That's what happens. And it's a sad state of the world, and I'm not a pessimist in any regard. I'm just trying to analyze the chessboard and be as perspicacious as possible and set myself up in a position where I feel like I can live a life true to myself and true to God and be free and enjoy the freedom of my family and just do what I want to do without hurting anybody. That's all I'm trying to do.
Well, let me ask you, you think maybe from your perspective, you have a blind spot? And I'd love for you to push back on this one
Sure.
here. The blind spot is, the only life you've ever lived is the life of a alpha raised by an alpha who raised two boys who are alphas, who the way you describe your father was a guy that pushed you guys, challenged you guys. He brought you guys together to back each other up. And all you know is I can fight, I can play chess, I can outthink you, I can get out of things. I have the gift of gap. I can talk. I can do. So that's the only lens you have where, if we were living in times, biblical times, a guy like you would probably end up being the emperor. A guy like you who can do all of those things, you're probably going to make it to the top.
Correct.
But they created laws and orders for guys like you to not bully the little guy, to protect the little guy. That's
Agreed.
how they came up with the gum to call it the great equalizer, where naturally you're supposed to gravitate to the top.
Yep.
Naturally.
Agreed.
Because of all those things you bring to the table. People want a guy like even in New York, many times, Brownsville, they wanted some of the mob there because the mob prevented girls from being taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
But they still broke the law. So there was still that element of, so do you think a part of it where for you, yes, a person